July 1987 brought us Crash issue 42. The cover was dominated by the picture of James Bond, as played by Timothy Dalton, a reference to the game of the film The Living Daylights previewed in this issue. This issue also came with a free sample of the comic Oink. A mere 2 Crash smashes this month, let's see what games are in the top 10. In 10th place this month with 77% is Metrocross from US Gold. This is a Spectrum version of the classic Namco arcade game, in which you race against time across a checkerboard floor, avoiding hazards and kicking cans for extra points. Mark Rothwell, reviewing for Crash, described it as a game that is easy to play and understand, but gets increasingly difficult as you progress. Although sound was non-existent, he found the graphics pretty good. He felt that interest may wane as you learn the layouts. Mike Dunn found the first 6 levels too easy and the 7th impossible. He thought it cost far too much, and although good for a few plays, didn't find it addictive. Nick Roberts called it a real winner, with all the thrills and spills of the original arcade machine. He found it a little overpriced, although packed full of playability. The sideways scrolling nature of this game reminds me somewhat of Shockwave Rider, reviewed in issue 38, and the floor tiles that slow you down made me think of Trailblazer from issue 34. However, it's different from both of those games, and actually very good fun. Not a game that I'd come across before, but it's one of those arcade titles that's easy to pick up, and I can see being quite addictive. Definitely one I enjoyed. In 9th place with 78% is Frightened Fantasy by Dented Design. As the name may suggest, this is somewhat a spoof of the Fighting Fantasy gamebooks, popular around this time. Unfortunately, I've not been able to locate a copy of this game to play, nor could I find the cover art, so I've just got the Crash review to go on here. Derek Brewster, reviewing in the Adventure Trail column, liked the humorous tone, and even felt it may rival Fergus McNeil of Delta 4. His biggest criticism was the lack of grammatical accuracy, but he had more minor criticisms, such as the large picture resulting in information scrolling off screen quickly. A game created with Incentive's graphic adventure creator, he felt the utility had been used to good effect, with good pictures, a pleasant character set, and colour changes between location descriptions. Although the plot wasn't necessarily credible, Derek found the game amusing, and better than Dented Design's previous efforts. If anyone has, or knows where to find a copy of this, please let me know. In 8th place with 79% is Earthshock from 8th Day Software. This is a science fiction themed text-only adventure starting in darkness just below the surface of a planet. Derek described the location descriptions as long and reasonably atmospheric. He found the character set readable and liked the way 2 towers part to accept your input. He found the game's main trump card to be the 3 sub-quests you can pick from, which subtly alter the endgame. On the whole, he scored the game between 78 and 80% in all categories. It's a shame the game doesn't have graphics, but it at least tries to make up for it with longer location descriptions that take up the best part of a screen. These certainly help to create an atmosphere. It's a bit of a shame that examining most items doesn't really offer much. The font works well here, actually being readable. All in all, one perhaps for adventure fans to take a look at. In 7th place we have another text adventure. This one is Temple of Terror from US Gold. This scored 81%. I mentioned Fighting Fantasy earlier, and this game is actually based on a book from the Fighting Fantasy series. Your quest in this game is to stop Dark Elf Malbordus from collecting 5 dragon artifacts. Derek particularly praised the superb storyline. He found the vocabulary not exactly unfriendly, more that commands needed to be precise. He described it as an attractively illustrated adventure, with pictures not unattractive but having a sparse look. Those of you familiar with Derek's reviews may know that he was never keen on white backgrounds. He was also annoyed by the curious stutters and the lack of finesse in communication and presentation, but he summarised it as a strong story and likeable game. This game looks good with a readable font and a decent start graphic, but I'm not immensely impressed by the game design. The game appears to give you only a couple of moves before killing you off, so success appears to require lots of restarts and learning something in one life that you can use in the next. Add to this the game not appearing to understand reasonable commands, or even the abbreviation of I for inventory. All of this, plus the annoying beep after every key press, does nothing to sell the game, which is a pity. I may come back to this as it feels it's got some potential I haven't quite tapped into yet, but not a great start. In 6th place with 84% is F-15 Strike Eagle by Microprose. As the name suggests, this is a flight simulation with you taking the controls of an F-15 Strike Eagle fighter jet. You can take on missions in 7 different locations with 4 difficulty levels. Roger Keane described this as one of his favourite games on the Atari and felt the Spectrum version was surprisingly similar in appearance and gameplay. Mark Rothwell felt that the graphics worked smoothly The displays and instrumentation were fast, and, with a variety of missions and difficulty levels, there were many playing hours in this package. Richard Eddy found the game visually neat, although sometimes the planes were hard to see. He summarised it as a good game for simulation fans. Although the title screen appears a bit too psychedelic, the game appears well presented. It's laid out well with the map, details of what is on your plane, and of course the main flight view all on screen at once. It's a game that feels responsive enough, but suffers like most flight simulators of this era with the landscape just being too barren. Perhaps one if you like flight simulators, but I wasn't keen. In 5th place, with 85%, is Thing Bounces Back from Gremlin. This is a sequel to the game Thing on a Spring, although that game was never released on the Spectrum. You take the role of the Thing on a Spring and have to make your way around various areas of a scrolling industrial complex, collecting computer components in order to progress to the next level. Robin Candy found this daunting at first, as the instructions tell you nothing about how to play, but ultimately he found the game playable with fast, furious action. He rated the scrolling as excellent, and the graphics colourful and reasonably detailed. Paul Sumner doubted that there would be anyone who wouldn't be addicted to this game. He found all of the screens appealing to the eye. Mark Rothwell found the game of a high standard both graphically and sonically. However, he was less positive than the others about the gameplay, finding it difficult and soon boring, but suitable for a rainy Sunday. It's certainly fast-paced and colourful, although I think perhaps slightly too fast, leading you to frequently not quite hit where you're trying to get to. It does a good job of avoiding colour clash, but I do find that it's possible to occasionally get stuck somewhere you can't get out of. I'm not sure if this game will have lasting appeal, but it's certainly jolly and may well be a good bit of fun for a few hours. In 4th place with 86% is Stormbringer from Mastertronic. This is a follow-up to the games Spellbound and Nighttime, and has the user interface that you may recall from those games. Once again you take the role of Magic Knight with the task to find and merge with your alter ego, the Off-White Knight, also known as Stormbringer. Mark described this as a great game with graphics up to David Jones' usual high standard. He found it hard to get into but easier after a bit of exploring. Robin found it fiendishly difficult to get into, although he was new to the Magic Knight games. He felt it would be worth buying even as a full price game, although noted strong similarities with the previous games in the series. Nick Roberts noted the occasional colour clash issue, but liked the neat touches. He was critical of the lack of title screen music in the 48K version, and felt the game would only appeal to arcade adventure freaks who liked the David Jones style of programming. Although Nick and Robin rated it above 90%, Mark brought the score down for adding little new to the previous games. Out of all the games in the top 10 this issue, this was the only one I played back in the day. It may be criticised for having the same structure and menu system as Spellbound and Nighttime, but in my opinion those games worked well, so why change it? It offers a new set of locations to visit, characters to interact with and problems to solve. The 128K music may get a bit overpowering at times, but this game is of the high standard of the early ones in the series. I would personally have given this a crash smash and I would certainly recommend it. In 3rd place with 87% is Yankee from CCS. This is another strategy game written by Ken Wright, author of Waterloo from issue 23, Austerlitz from issue 24 and Napoleon at War from issue 34. This time the setting is the American Civil War. Philippa Irvine, reviewing in the front line column, found the map clear and detailed, without the clutter of extraneous information. She liked the way in which terrain was important to gameplay, finding that this increased the variety and sophistication of tactics, enhanced the realism, and helped give the game atmosphere. She found the rules to be of a high standard with the instructions explaining them well. She felt the game had a deceptive complexity beneath a simple command structure and on-screen appearance. On the whole, she found it perfectly paced, with 2 distinctly different scenarios, and summarised it as one of the best battle-scale simulations she'd seen. It's another game from Ken Wright, so bears a strong resemblance to his previous games, with there being not a great deal to tell them apart graphically. Where this game differs is under the hood. As with all of Ken Wright's games, you know it's been well researched, and will undoubtedly provide a good level of challenge. If you didn't like his previous games, it certainly won't convert you, but if you want more strategy, you can't go wrong. In 2nd place with 91% is this month's first crash smash. This is Synapse from Hewson. This is a horizontally scrolling alien blaster type game over 16 levels, reminiscent of Scramble but without the bombs. Mike liked this, although hardly original, he found it had reams of playability and stacks of activity with great graphics and excellent use of colour. Paul described it as the ultimate in Nemesis clones and one of the most attractive shoot-em-ups. He praised the fast and furious action and precise collision detection. Richard called this a classy shoot-em-up, one to stay clear of if you're bored of mindless blasting, but otherwise a satisfyingly frustrating and highly addictive action-packed game. It's undoubtedly a quality game, and one of the best side-scrolling shooters we've seen for the Spectrum up until this point. Not the greatest ever, that's still to come, but certainly up there. The graphics are superb, the sound is quintessentially Spectrum, and the whole thing is just excellently done. It's just a shame it feels so unforgiving, with one misplaced bullet leading to you being hit and having to go back to the start of the level. Nevertheless, it's an addictive game and certainly worth a few quick blasts on. Finally, in first place is another Crash Smash. With 93%, this is Killed Until Dead by US Gold. This is a murder mystery themed game set at the Gargoyle Hotel. You play Hercule Holmes and investigate through examining files, monitoring meetings and interrogating suspects to find the killer. Mark felt that although this wasn't a new idea, the game is varied and highly amusing. He found the graphics excellent with large and well-defined sprites. Paul praised the depth of the game with all the elements of the great murder mysteries and a superb atmosphere. He described it as a must for fans of the Agatha Christie books and films and great value. Richard liked the excellent graphics and clever use of sound, finding the game highly enjoyable with different puzzles and playing options increasing the addictive qualities. This game scored in the 90s in all categories. There aren't many first place games that I have no recollection of at all, but Killed Until Dead is one of these. It certainly gets points for originality, bearing maybe a resemblance to the fourth protocol from issue 19, and somewhat like the Vera Cruz affair from issue 34, but just done with so much more polish and user-friendliness than that game. It's certainly not a fast-paced game, responsive enough, but one that requires careful consideration of who and what to investigate. I'm sure Synapse is the game from this month that will stick in everyone's mind, but this is certainly an unsung gem. My special mention this month goes to Down to Earth from Firebird, a game that scored a mere 47%. This game puts you in control of an astrodozer with a mission to clear 30 different planetary systems of hostile inhabitants. At least that's the blurb. Really, this is just a no-frills Balderdash clone. Robin found this graphically primitive, with jerky movement and uninspiring characters. Although finding it as addictive as Balderdash, he described it as a touch too frustrating. Mark wasn't impressed, finding the scrolling awful, although did call the tractor cute. Paul found the colour well used, but felt that the graphics lacked the realism and smooth animation needed for an addictive game. He described the sound as terrible, and concluded by saying that he couldn't see himself bothering with Down to Earth again. The game did not score well in any category, graphics being a particular low at 39%. I've picked this game as one that I played over and over again back in the day. Looking at it now in the context of all the other great games released, its rough edges certainly show. The scrolling is jerky, the graphics are nothing special, and the game hasn't added a great deal to the original Balderdash all the way back from issue 12. However, what it does have in its favour is that Balderdash is just one of those puzzle-solving, thinking-type arcade games that's good fun. If you dislike Balderdash, don't bother with this, but otherwise I'd rate this as a perfectly adequate version, if nothing groundbreaking, worth playing for the challenge of the levels. If you have enjoyed this, please like and subscribe to see more videos about retro computing from Logic Retro.